is a ceremony of passage into light, a change for Gauden University. It's Friday, the 8th of May, 2015. Hi, welcome. Who's joined us?
Barb.
Hi, Barb. Glad to hear your voice.
Glad to be here.
So we're being recorded, and if everyone could either hit mute on their phone or *6 until we get to the sharing part, the line will be a lot quieter. It'll be easier for us to hear one another, and the recording will sound better. So thank you for muting your line if you haven't already done so. Let's start. First, let me say who's on the call, and so that you have a sense of how many people are here when we're doing the connections. It's Diane, Sally, Peggy, Topsoil, Thomas, Julie, and Barb. So far, more people might come. And so we're the group that's holding the energy here together for this ceremony, and other people might be listening afterwards to the recording. So let's start with a moment of silence and to energetically connect with one another and set the space for these energies to move through us and for us to be participants in and celebrants of this passage ceremony. You can do that by first connecting with your heart, going inside your heart into the space of love, emptiness, fullness, the outpouring, the receiving inward, the incredible depth, the flexibility and the strength. So many attributes your heart has as an energy organ. This is one of our greatest gifts as human beings, is our capacity for compassion and empathy, our ability to receive love and to offer love, and our ability to channel higher vibrational energy through our hearts. So connect firmly and securely with that inner capacity that you have innately, your humanity and your divinity, through your heart center, however you know it. And I'm hearing some sniffing. If everyone could be sure to mute their line, *6, or the mute button on your phone, please. Thank you. Now begin to link your heart with the space in the center of our gathering, as if we're sitting in a circle around a campfire, and there's a flame, a sacred flame in the center. Link your heart and its capacities with that sacred flame. And you might notice that in that space in the center, there is emptiness and there is fullness. Good. And notice that that connection from your heart to the center of the circle is like a spoke on a wheel. If we are on the rim and the flame's in the center, this is a spoke connecting you to the center. And when everyone strengthens that connection to the center, the whole circle is strengthened. So at any time during the ceremony when you would like to offer energy or receive energy, imagine that it can travel along this spoke, this energy pathway from your heart to the center of the group and from the center of the group to your heart, so that as we all add, the bank in the center becomes ever fuller. And as we withdraw, it creates a space that makes more room for others' contributions so that we're in balance at all times and dynamic, not static, always giving, always receiving, always moving and changing. Good. So we're gathered together today to mark the passage of Gauden into light, a little death, a destruction of this form in our lives. We're going to reflect together on the seeds of light we have planted through Gauden and our activities in Gauden, if we are directly involved or tangentially involved, and what we've gathered from that. And we're going to reflect together on where we're going now after the dissolution of this form. I'll take the first topic, destruction of form. Diane will take the second topic, seeds and harvest. And Topsoil will take the third topic, reflecting on where we're going. And Thomas will do the benediction. There'll be time for sharing on each topic and some silences to spaces. So I'll start with the first topic, destruction of form, with a reading from Normandy Ellis from her book, Awakening Osiris, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And this mentions, these readings today are all from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and they mention various Egyptian gods, which are all aspects of the one being. So don't be too startled by these unusual names. In this one, it's Temu. I might be saying it wrong, or Timu. I'll say Temu, T-E-M-U. From fire, out of fire, and into fire, Temu takes back what is given. One day, he'll destroy what he has created, from nothing returning to nothing. Time shall swallow itself, the lesser days and the eons. How can one remember what never existed? But today, on this riverbank, the palm fronds are stirring. Temu lives in light. Ra rises up. There is time for wisdom, deed, and possibility. There is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Though we pass quickly, the earth and heaven remain. Let us make something useful with our hands. Though time forgets us, let it not forget our passing. Grant that today we may do work that matters. Let's take a moment of silence and just let that settle. So, destruction of form, little death, and that reading. I'd like to invite you now for us to do a round of sharing using the talking stick style so that you have an imaginary or a virtual stick, and when you're ready, you can unmute your phone and say your name and say, I'm picking up the stick. And I want to invite you to share a short story, because there are a few of us on the line today, about loss, little death, learning about things from changes, destructions of form. Hi, welcome. Who's joined us?
Peter.
Oh, Peter, welcome. We're just unmuting to share stories about loss and destruction of form. So mute your line, please. And if you have something to share, we're using a talking stick circle format.
Amy, this is Harold. I'm on as well.
Oh, hi there, Harold. Glad to hear your voice. Welcome. So it's not necessary that you share if you don't have something to share, but if you're feeling moved and you'd like to share a story about a little death and a learning from your little death, this is the moment in the ceremony to do that.
Let's talk soil. I'll pick up the.
I don't think we can hear you very well.
Is just to acknowledge, like. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm calling in on Skype, so the connection might not be the best, but it was the way I could be here. So please bear with any difficulties in the sound, in the connection. What I was saying is that the story that occurred to me, or the thing that occurred to me to acknowledge with this little death, is with Gauden itself. That when I got involved, and what really excited me was the idea of having a university of light work. And the degree programs, the MDiv, and all of that vision was really powerful for me, and I was really attracted to it, and I think also attached to it because as that hasn't set up over these last few years, and now as the container, the structure of Gauden is being set down, the fact that didn't materialize is in the way that we envisioned it, is present for me, and I want to acknowledge that as things to happen in other ways, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen in the way that we were originally envisioning it, and I just felt called to put that into the circle and voice it. So I'll put down the stick.
Well, I'll pick up the stick. It's Amy. And I can't remember now what it was that I had a loss over so many years ago when Asa Bhaskar, my guide, first said these words to me. But I was really sad about some little death, very upset. And he said to me, "Nothing leaves your life unless something better is coming." And I said, "Well, that can't be true. That's like too good to be true." And he said, "Well, you can believe it or not believe it, but that's our perspective, is that things only die in the bigger picture, in fulfillment of their form, that things don't die one moment before there's fulfillment, even if it doesn't seem apparent at the form level, and that death is a giving away into a larger life to make space for something better or new or more appropriate to changing conditions." I think that's what "better" in quotation marks means, to come along. And I have had, like all of us in human form, a lot of loss in my life and a lot of unexpected change. And it really helps me at those times, even if I'm not sure I believe it, to say like a mantra, "Nothing leaves my life unless something better is coming." I'm putting down the stick. Any other stories or insights or feelings or anything that wants to be spoken into the circle now about loss, change of form, little death? Sometimes there are some pretty hard, intense feelings before we get to that place of something better's coming. I want to make sure there's space for that here.
Hello, this is Sally. And I think for me, what's interesting in this situation is that I see this as being so much more of a change of form which has new opportunity versus other closures in my life where there seemed to be just a shutting down. And I don't think the fluidity of moving from one form to another was as apparent. And there seems in this situation to be the opportunity for a continuity of bringing along good and for potentially opening space for more good. And I think for me with losses, it's been more situations where, say, someone has passed away or a relationship has broken off, and there hasn't been opportunities to voice what needed to be voiced or to work through emotions that had not been resolved. And I love what you shared, Amy, because it also brings forth the fact that, you know, those events, while they may not seem to be perfectly timed from my perspective, in their own way were. And that I can look at this from a different perspective now. Thank you.
And so in this silence, I ask that we all hold space for anyone who is experiencing sorrow, that ripped up feeling when things don't go the way you thought they would, anger, fear, emptiness, frustration. I ask that we hold space and vision for that energy to move, express, and transform into its next incarnation as pure life force energy, able to create. That from destruction, we have that faith, for we understand the cyclical nature of this reality that we are in, that what matters is the movement. Think now of a time in your life, a space in your life where there's opportunity for some of this movement to take place. Some of your sorrow, anger, frustration, coming from loss. And imagine that the power of this circle and our shared intention to honor and mark these passages is somehow supporting and nourishing you. Imagine that that's drawing into your heart along that spoke of light from the center of the circle. And imagine that as you do that, a ripple is moving out, a ripple of energy full of information and light to touch all those close to Gauden, close to you in your lives, who are sorrowing or keening or raging or fearing. And just like the touch of a feather, like a breeze passing your cheek through an open window, it could be so subtle. This wave we are generating is adding to the support for those people. Even if they never know that we've done it, it doesn't matter. Just sense, experience, or imagine this now. That through your movement, through your genuine presence, and through our shared energy, we are offering that. Good. Now I'll put down the stick and hand over the stick to Diane to conduct the next section of the ceremony about seeds and harvest.
The Seeds and Harvest reading selection is also from Norman D. Ellis, Awakening Osiris, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I know the future for all of us, and it is death. As we live, we fight sluggishness. We gather our seeds. We put our hearts into the labor of our hands. We make children to live and remember us. We spend our lives preparing for death, for the moment when we offer up our days and our labor, our sayings and our doings, the sum of ourselves, and beg the gods to call it good. Let's take a moment of silence. And in this round of sharing, a short story about what seeds of light Gauden helped you to plant and what you have harvested from the planting. And if you did not participate in Gauden, perhaps another spiritual school in your life. A short story about seeds planted and what you've harvested from the planting. And we'll continue with the circle modality and picking up the stick and saying your name before you're sharing. Thank you. Welcome. Well, I will pick up the stick. This is Diane. I did the core materials and also the Healer, Counselor, and Minister course through Gauden /Tzaddi. And as I think back over the coursework that I did and what I harvested from that, I feel like I planted, or seeds were planted in a deeper, bigger space, deep from my being. I think it's something about this depth that comes from the all that is, and is the connection of, my spark from the all that is, from that very large container. And I feel like what it did was really get me planted in a really big space that provides an opportunity to grow, I think, exponentially. So that a step of growth is a pretty big step when those steps happen. And it's from the anchoring in something that's so deep and so big. And I think that's what was planted and what I am just beginning to harvest in terms of, I've been talking recently about swimming in a really big lake, which I thought was pretty big. And I have a recognition that I'm now in an ocean swimming, and the skills from the lake are proving useful, but it's a different experience altogether, and the largeness of it is quite astonishing. So I think the harvest is just continuing to be bigger, but with an anchor into something very deep. I'm putting the stick down. Thank you.
Julie. I'll pick up the stick. I would say that being very active in the renewal network as it was initially, and learning RR and doing RR for the last, I don't even know how many years, maybe 8 or 9 years at this point, maybe 8, that a lot of seeds were planted. And I went to a conference yesterday for, it's a New Jersey organizational development, they call it Day of Sharing, and it's a conference. And there were a number of, I had conversations with all these really wonderful people, and then there were some exercises, and I got in touch with that, what I think what I've gained and where this, what's the fruit that's been born from the seeds is that I feel like I'm much more integrated. That several years ago I really wanted to integrate my spiritual life with my business life, and I feel like it's happened, and that I can't compartmentalize those parts of me any longer. And when I share this with total strangers, they got very, very excited. So I had this sense of like, oh yeah, people get this. And the comment that came back to me from several people was that I was powerful, that something about that integration sort of came across as personal power. So it was nice confirmation, and it sort of fits in really nicely with this ceremony. I'm putting down the stick.
All right, topsoil. I'll pick up the stick. The thing I'm thinking about is that the Gauden has life over these few years, and then setting up the renewal network, and then also participating in all of those aspects. It's things that has happened for me to deepen my listening. There have been so many, I think my roles in the various aspects for being present, I think there's a lot on with me.
Topsoil, most of what you're saying isn't understandable. It's just coming across as rippling sounds.
The skill of listening.
Topsoil, it's really not possible to hear what you're saying. I don't know if there's any adjustments that you can make. I think you said you're more present with things and you can be more honest, or there's greater honesty, but what you've been saying isn't really clear.
Thanks for letting.
Yeah, I think it's bad enough, Topsoil, that I'm going to ask you to hand either me or Diane the stick to do the reading and the posting for the third part, because I don't think your connection is up to the task. Audio in terms of audio. When we get to that point. I'd suggest that you text me on your phone about who you want to have lead that, either me or Diane, because it's really not functional to hear you do it.
If Amy, I'm not at a computer, so it would be best if you...
Okay, I'll do that then, when we get to that point. Change in form right here on the call.
Right here it is.
Right here it is.
Let's just take a moment and see if there's any other sharing about seeds of light planted and what's been harvested from the planting.
Hello, this is Sally. I just wanted to say that I was also involved in the radiant reflective practices and found that the growth that they offered was phenomenal for me during that time period. And there were certain areas where just, how can I put this? It was like a consciousness and a connection with a greater consciousness became available, particularly during the practice itself. And I think for me, the seed that was collected in that was during one of our triangles. And as I sat in the position of the observer, I felt myself kind of transforming into a perspective where I just became merged with this incredible flow and really got an experience of oneness and universal flow that has been really hard to replicate. And I think what was most significant for me was the fact that I felt more integral in myself as part of this larger flow. And for me, it was kind of a direct contrast from the kind of merging and enmeshment that was the experience of my childhood relationship and dynamics. And it was a very, very powerful experience which has stayed with me. And there are times when it's felt appropriate to really tap into that kind of memory consciousness, so to say. So I really look forward to the new forms that these seeds can bear. Thank you. I'm putting down the stick.
So thank you for the sharing. Let's close this section of Seeds and Harvest in another moment of silence, reflecting on paths of growth that develop from seeds and are harvested into greater love and greater light and greater flow. Thank you.
So this is Amy. I'll pick up the stick for topsoil since his audio isn't working properly on Skype. This is the section to reflect together on where we're going now. And the reading selection, again, is from Norman D. Ellis, Awakening Osiris, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Do you know magic? Can you utter the name of your soul and bring yourself back to light? Can you speak your destiny? Create life for yourself, from yourself, as Temu created Ra? From the light of your works, do you know who you are? And so I'll invite you now to tell a short story or give a sharing about where you are in your life, who you are, where you're going. Putting down the stick.
This is Diane. I'll pick up the stick. I have been at a conference this week in Chicago, and it's a patent conference, and I haven't been to this particular one in 3 years. And it was really nice to reconnect with people who I know quite well from this industry. And it was really interesting. There was this one guy that I had never met before. He's the CEO of this company that does work with genomes and gene sequences and stuff, and they're doing some pretty cool work to locate the data and then to display it and to analyze it and stuff. And there was, with him, and I hadn't met him, but even with other people that I've known for some time, there was this presence that I had in my interactions with them that was really different. And I would say that the difference was that I was showing up more as myself and just listening and waiting to say something that seemed appropriate and somehow more real, just in interactions that was from that place, that depth that I was talking about before, that it was just from a deeper place that was more connected, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that is sourcing more of me, there's just more of me that's present to share, even if the exchange is, light and not any kind of deep anything. It's about the beingness. And so I don't know where I'm headed, except that I know that's now more of a part of me, and anticipate that it will be even more so in the future. I don't know, it was very interesting and felt very special. And I'm feeling grateful. And I'm putting down the stick. Thank you.
This is Amy. I'll pick the stick up. I think where I'm going now is I feel like I want to strip down to the bone even closer, down to the essentials of how things are put together and how things come apart. That's been an interest of mine for a long time. And I think coming out of this experience with Gauden, I learned so much about myself and about spiritual community and communication and, creation and destruction, all the things I'm actually really interested in. I got a really great chance to learn about that in a completely different way through this endeavor. And where I'm going with it now is I feel I'm much more able to be present with and compassionate with myself and other people in learning. I was always a good teacher. I always really loved to teach. But I think I had a lot of expectations and rigidities that were part of my personality construct. And I don't feel as constructed in those areas as I used to. I feel pretty deconstructed. And I'm interested in creating learning opportunities that are really free of any kind of overt or subtle coercion and are really based on reinforcement and positive, innate motivation in people. I'm living right now on a farm where I got sent by guidance, and I'm now starting to have farm animals and be a farmer. And these animals are teaching me so much about consciousness and about force and positive and negative reinforcement. And you have to really be awake, because you can get hurt, physically hurt, if you're not paying attention. And you certainly can't always win physically with force. And so I'm getting to heal a lot of, I think, really fundamental domination and submission questions that were part of my rigid personality structures. And I feel so grateful and excited to have these teachers, these animals as my teachers, and to be awake and to be learning. And I'm really curious about how this will translate back into my activities as a teacher with humans. I'm putting down the stick.
Hello, this is Sally again, and I'm just in a place of having closed down parts of my life because of relocating from New York to Asheville. And I'm a bit of a waiting process to see what is opening up for me, what the opportunities are, and where am I being directed to serve and to express my gifts. And for the moment, I'm taking a lot of time to basically settle in my house and develop my property, and that there were things done to the garden and just lots of neglect and all. So I'm trying to be a good steward here and add to it some playfulness. I've put some little gnome figures into my garden, and it reminds me of the Master's Course when we actually, worked with some of these spirits. And so I would really love to see my life move in that direction and have more clarity as to how I can be of best service down in this area. I'm putting down the stick.
Okay, anybody else want to share who you are, where you're going now? One or two more?
Thomas here. Can you hear me, Amy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a thought about answering that question. In the light of your work, do you know who you are? Somehow or other, it seems to me that kind of in working in the curriculum and working through new and possible curriculums for both the mentor training program and for PACE and for flow and then the healer counselor and the ministerial programs, that each of those curricula in their own way was not really about setting limits, or not just about setting limits for either performance or for behavior or for ethics. But they were also in their own way, each of them in their own ways, phenomenological baselines or springboards for inspiration. And now I want to play with the language. It's not just kind of inspiration kind of intellectually or even with new techniques or that, but it's also inspiriting, inviting each and every one of us and me to commune more closely with one another, both in classes and during sessions and during our work with our parishioners or our clients, but also communing more closely with the divine, or what Diane called the all that is. So in some sense, each of the programs that have comes sort of even before, but during and also after Gauden University, for me at least, had to do with that inspiration for learning to connect and commune, to inspire more fully with the divine, and in that to come to answer each of us in our own way, on our own path, the question, do you know who you are? And for me, I don't have any answer yet. I'm still working on that one. So I'm putting the stick down now.
Okay. Thank you for your sharings. Just take a moment of silence to acknowledge and honor these sharings and to encourage ourselves and one another to know who we are, to explore, not know in the sense of a finished knowing, but in the sense of an ongoing exploration of an emergent truth, of a curiosity. Good. Now I'm going to hand the stick to Thomas for the blessing and the benediction, and we'll follow that blessing with a circle round for a one word or phrase check out of what you're taking with you as you leave the call today. So Thomas, passing the stick to you.
And so, may the divine bless you and keep you. May the divine make its face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the divine uplift its countenance within you and give you peace.
Thank you. I'm taking fullness and gratitude from the call today.
Thomas here. I'm experiencing communion and connection and the all that is.
This is Diane, co-creation with the divine and with others.
This is Peggy. I'm taking surrender and release.
This is Sally. I'm taking peace and inspiration.
Just a note, you have to unmute your phone to share if you've muted it. So you have to hit mute again or *6 again so we can hear your voice. Okay, there's been some dings of exiting people, so anybody left who hasn't shared a checkout, we'd love to hear your voice.
This is Barb, Synchronicity.
Great. Okay. So let's close the circle now by coming back to our hearts, thanking and acknowledging the form of the circle, the miraculous form, for the cauldron that it creates, for the transformation that it offers, acknowledging ourselves and each other as people of goodwill, people who are learning and growing, human beings of light on a path of growth and development. Let's now take from the center of the circle to our hearts that spoke of light and withdraw it, bringing within it a hologram of all these energy richnesses and gifts. Good. And what is left that we don't all receive is dissipating now into the universe, seeds of light, waves, energies to nourish and help others who are grieving, mourning, changing, growing, evolving. So that now where our circle was, there's an imprint in the Akasha, but there is emptiness and a beautiful shining light. Oh, thank you all for being in this ceremony. I wish you a good day. Bye-bye.